Bing bongy bong, bing bongy bong. This is Joe, the bearded historian. He'll tell you an interesting story. Be careful of his soldiers, they can be brats. This is Angel, she's an entity. She'll cause chaos and plant her hands at you. This is Sue, she likes spirits, not the alcohol. She's the reason this channel exists. This is David, he likes fire trucks. He's here occasionally. Bing bongy bong, bing bongy bong, bing bongy bong. We preserve his story. Good morning. It is Wednesday, and that means we're going to be doing a bit of history. In this video, Joe's going to talk about a sports ball person. Hopefully you've heard of him, are interested in him, or something along those lines. I've chosen what is called a spaceball race, which I don't really understand, but it's kind of a hoppy summary. I think I've seen it in the, I don't know. I have no idea. Anyway, it looks like a fun little race that would be fun to do. Are you ready? Are you ready? Go. Shout out time. Here's a shout out just for you. You support me, so us for you. This shout out is for our friends. Let's see who it is today. Are you ready? Oh, I said that already, didn't I? Never mind. Okay. Okay, start. Alright, there's Hiking Ontario, there's there's Susan, there's Cal King, there's Bobby, there's Mike's Garden, there's Mark, there's Jacob, there's Rowdy, there's Blended, there's Face, there's Rich and Leo, there's Popcorn, there's Cal King, there's Goldie, there's Laura, Amanda, Grisella, Vi, Van, Frugal, Blended, Keep Digging, Rook, Eric, Rowdy, Blended, Vaughn, excuse me, Tammy, can't see who's underneath those numbers. There's one of our Johns, there's Stace, Blistering, Shy-Minded, Alice, Rich and Leo. Oh, it's gonna be Amboys and Amboys and Amboys. We have Miss Amboys, and she does a vlog, as well as some shorts, and then some ASMR, which she's been doing this crazy thing called Greedy Granny recently. So if you're into, wasting time, you can do the lives. Shorts, you can see the fun parts of the lives, or vlogs. You can keep up on her life in another country. Well, although it hasn't posted recently, there's that. So check them out. Like, share, comment. Have a good. All right, bearded historian. Tell them something semi-interesting. Not too interesting.
Not too interesting.
We don't want them to actually pay attention.
I don't want you to pay attention because you might, get rightfully bored.
They might get knowledge.
Oh, heaven forbid. It might actually be extra research, learning about some of this stuff. Anyway. This month is going to get really crazy towards the end of the month because it's the time of the NFL draft. And everybody starts to lose their mind over a 3-day period because day 1 they'll have the first round, day 2 they'll have the second and third round, and then day 3 they'll have rounds 4 through 7. And then after that they'll have massive trading going on for the extra free agents. It turns into kind of a monstrosity of the NFL franchises. But
sounds like fun.
Yeah, the big thing. And, depending on what team you like, and what team you follow, and what team you subscribe to.
You can subscribe to teams?
Well, if your fandom is loyal, heaven forbid, you'll be with them through thick and thin. If you get tired of a certain franchise after a while, you may, draw a team out of a hat. I remember one time a guy actually was selling his loyalty on eBay.
Wow.
I'm like,
I don't trust him.
Yeah, hello. Boy, you're loyal, aren't you? Loyal to money. But you look at some of the teams, you look at some of the coaches, and you have some coaches. For example, if you're a Patriots fan, you remember the great years of Belichick. If you're a Broncos fan, you might remember Reeves or Shanahan. For those of you who are really old school, you might remember the Falcons back when they were both struggling, but they also had some good times with Glanville. The Jets, they experimented with different head coaches. The Bills, you had Levy, who was an excellent coach. Sadly, they just could never win the whole thing. Or you could have the I'm sorry, the Cowboy fans just you had a couple of really good coaches, but then for some reason they got on the bad side of Jones, and off he went. Now, being a Raider fan, I remember a couple of the greatest coaches we had came out of the 70s. Our first guy was born in April 10th, back in 1936 in a little town called Austin, Minnesota. He would be a good coach in the NFL. Started his head coaching career in 1969. It would only go until 1978 because he started having some medical issues because of it. But he also was able to pull off one of the greatest career adjustments that any coach could possibly do. But we'll go all the way back to the first page.
No.
History. Okay, John Madden, again, born April 10th, 1936. His dad was an auto mechanic and moved the family from the warm, billowy Minnesota
So
to California. Daly City, south of San Francisco, when John was young. Well, John would attend a Catholic parochial school with a fellow named John Robinson. Yep, that same Robinson who later would make his name with the Rams. And then he would go on to Jefferson High School, graduating in 1954. Well, a football star in high school, Madden played 1 year at the College of San Mateo in 54 before he was given a football scholarship to the University of Oregon, studying pre-law and playing football with, again, childhood friend John Robinson. Well, he got redshirted because of a knee injury and had a knee operation. He then attended college at San Mateo in 1955, then Grays Harbor College, playing in the fall of 1956, before transferring to Cal Poly in San Luis Obispo, where he would play both offense and defense for the Mustangs in 57 and 58, while earning a Bachelor of Science in Education, then a Master of Arts in Education in 61. Madden's senior research project at Cal Poly focused on the use of weights to increase strides and speed in athletic training. Well, he would win first team all-conference honors as an offensive tackle in his debut season at Cal Poly, and interestingly enough was a catcher on the Mustangs baseball team. Known mostly from his teammates for an impressive downfield speed of a lineman, Madden also was selected by the UPI for Little All-Coast second-team accolades following his junior season in 57. During the 57 season, Madden caught a pass from future fellow Hall of Fame inductee, then teammate and Cal Poly quarterback Bobby Brethard. Now, Madden would get drafted. He was picked up in the 21st round. Nowadays, you only have 7, so 20. Yeah, that's a long ways down the tree. But what's interesting is that he was the 244th overall pick.
Ouch.
Nowadays, if I remember it, I think there's about 257 picks in all of the draft. Because you've got every team gets their picks, you have compensation picks. Yeah, it's just a huge ladder of different players. And this was months before he began the senior season at Cal Poly. His senior year, which saw Madden regularly start on the left side of the offensive line, was cut short due to a season-ending collarbone injury suffered while making a tackle against Long Beach State in October of '58, with 4 games remaining in the schedule. However, in January 3rd, 1959, Madden would play at the All-American Bowl in Tucson and was later praised by Lou Pavlich of the Sporting News for his play in the showcase. Then, however, he would suffer an injury on his other knee in his first training camp with the Eagles scrimmage in August. This ended his playing career without having an opportunity to play in a regulation game professionally. Well, when I asked about how he became involved in coaching, when he hurt his knee in his rookie year, he mentioned that I couldn't play, and while I was rehabbing, Norm Van Brocklin would be watching films and would explain what was happening. I ended up with a degree in teaching, and my love of football meshed with teaching. Well, in 1960, he became an assistant coach at Ellen Hancock College in Santa Maria, California. He was promoted to head coach in 1962. Well, Madden went 12-6 in 2 seasons, including an 8-1 mark in '63, in which the Bulldogs would actually be ranked number 9th nationally among city colleges. But following the '63 season, he was hired as a defensive assistant coach at San Diego State, where he served through 1966. And during that flannel campaign in '66, the Aztecs were ranked among the top small colleges in the country. While at San Diego State, Madden would coach under Don Coryell, who Madden credited with being an influence on his coaching. Don Coryell later would become quite influential with the Chargers, the Air Coryell Project. Basically, it's when Dan Fouts was able to air out passes beautifully. Unfortunately, they also were in the same division as the Raiders. But building on that success, Madden would get a hiring job from Al Davis as a linebacker coach in 1967, putting him in the Sid Gilman coaching tree. And again, this is where we get to talk about the joys of different coaches who branched out from learning from a single coach. Gilman, the guys that he worked with, if I remember, Chuck Noll of Steelers fame was one of the guys. And so when it started, teams started coming into the AFL, when the AFL and the NFL were 2 different leagues, a lot of these guys would look at the idea and go, well, shoot, there's more jobs opening up, we'll see how we do over here. Well, Al Davis, would pen him, put him in on the defense. A year later, after the Raiders head coach John Ross resigned to take the same position with the Bills, hey, dude, where are you going? I'm going to go coach over here in Buffalo. Madden was named the Raiders head coach on February 4th, 1969, becoming at the age of 32 the NFL's youngest head coach at the time.
That's weird.
Yeah. Now, whether it's the fact that the Raiders were just doing that well, stacked up numerically, or the fact that, given he'd already been in the house and he knew the team, that first year in 1969, they went 12 wins, 1 loss, and 1 tie. They would lose in the last ever American Football League championship game, 17-7 to the Kansas City Chiefs. And crazy enough, it became kind of a frustrating trend during Madden's coaching career. Oakland would win 7 AFC West Division championships, always played to a winning record during the 10 seasons as head coach, but he would also lose 6 of those championship games. One of the most frustrating ones was in '72, when what appeared to be a last-minute AFC divisional round victory over the Steelers became part of, well, I call it a rip, the Franco Harris's Immaculate Reception gave Pittsburgh a 13-7 win. Now, for the files of creativity, the Raiders would, start figuring out how to stack their teams to play against teams like the Steelers, the Chiefs, the Dolphins. one of the things that was also kind of crazy about those given years is it seemed like whoever managed to beat the Raiders in the AFC contest would win the Super Bowl. The Chiefs won. They went on to win the Super Bowl. The Dolphins won. They'd go on to win the Super Bowl.
Fun.
The Steelers would win. They'd go on to win the Super Bowl. So whether you call it the fact that they had, warmed those teams up for the Super Bowl, or what the story was. But in '74, after knocking out the two-time defending Super Bowl champion Dolphins, the Raiders would again lose to the Steelers in a championship game, ending the season in '75, one game short of the Super Bowl. In '76, though, the Raiders did something that was kind of special. They would win their first Super Bowl.
Woo!
They started off the year 13-1. In week 1, they had a fun back and forth battle with the said Steelers. They'd wind up capturing that first game. They had a contest that was both dramatic and controversial against the New England Patriots, a 24-21 victory. And then in the third straight battle that year with the Steelers, Madden's team just beat up the Steelers in the AFC Championship game, 24-7. Well, then in January 9th, 1977, Madden would win his first and only NFL title, interestingly enough, against the Minnesota Vikings, the team that, had they not left the AFL, the Raiders might not have even been there. But that's a history lesson for another page. Well, the Raiders would make the playoffs the following year against the Broncos as a wild card, but would lose the AFC Championship game, this time to the Denver Broncos. Of course, the Broncos got their butts kicked by the Cowboys. The Raiders enjoyed that 10th straight winning campaign under Madden in '78, but failed to qualify for the playoffs for just the second time in his tenure. Soon after the season ended, Madden announced that his retirement on January 4th, 1979, due to troublesome ulcer and occupational burnout, stating he was permanently ending his coaching career. Now, some of the things that are kind of, you could almost, you have to feel sorry for the guy. On one hand, here he was a great coach, the players loved him, but at the same time, the heads of the Oakland Raiders, they kept switching around with Al Davis. There was starting to run into problems with players wanting to get out of the team. Al Davis wanted to bring in younger guys who, they were fast, but they didn't have hands. They couldn't catch. And, eventually it just started working. Also, kind of a interesting side item, apparently Madden had a horrible fear of flying. Anywhere they would go, he would have to, either take the bus or they would find an alternate form of transportation. There were some great stories from some of the guys in the 70s, though. If anybody wants to read a really good book, there's one out there called Badasses. And it's the story of the 70s Raiders and some of the stuff that would happen both in training camp and the regular season. The stuff that they did as a team, it almost reminded you half college and half high school fraternity pranks.
Well then.
Because the stuff that they would do, like, for example, one time they stole Ken Stabler's car.
Yeah.
And accidentally, well, they kind of, made a little damage to it. And, they came back and they says, yeah, Coach, we had a little problem, but we made it back here in time for curfew. And all of a sudden, Stabler came, what happened to my frickin' car? He was a little upset. I don't know why. Something about, issues. But anyway, when Madden retired, though, he was one of the winningest head coaches in a 10-year career. It was kind of phenomenal, the stats he put together. I think it has been broken since by the aforementioned Belichick. But, the other thing to remember is that this was the time when football was a lot more physical, a lot more stronger. Players could, hit like there's no tomorrow. And of course, being the Raiders, they did kind of carry that moniker with them that they are actually branded as a criminal element of the NFL.
Criminals!
Yeah. Just because they like to hit. I mean, come on now. It's football. But anyway, I digress. Now, Madden never had a losing season as a head coach. His overall winning percentage, including playoff games, would rank him second in league history behind a guy named Guy Chamberlain, and is the highest among those who coached 100 games. Madden would achieve his record during the period that included head coaches Tom Landry, Don Shula, Chuck Noll, and Bud Grant, who are generally regarded as the top coaches of that era. Now, again, he retired at the age of 42. So, what's this guy going to do? Well, after retiring, you figured, sportscasting. So, he wound up joining CBS as a color commentator in '79, working lower profile contests during the first years. He was elevated to the top football broadcasting duo with Pat Summerall in '81, replacing Tom Brookshire. Now, prior to teaming with Summerall, Madden would pair with a variety of announcers like Bob Costas, Vin Scully, Dick Stockton, Frank Gilmere, and Gary Bender. The team of Madden and Summerall would go on to call 8 Super Bowls together.
Wow.
Yeah. On occasions in which Summerall was unavailable during those CBS years, he is normally scheduled to commentate on U.S. Open tennis tournaments during the early weeks of the NFL season. Madden would team with the likes of Vin Scully and subsequently Vern Lindquist. Now, on their final CBS telecast together, the 1993 NFC Championship game, Madden told Summerall that while CBS may no longer have the NFL, at least they have the memories. In ABC's final Monday Night Football telecast in 2005, Madden used a similar choice of words. Well, when Fox gained the rights to the NFL games, the NFC games in 1994, leaving CBS without an NFL television deal, CBS employees became free agents. Madden was the biggest star of the football broadcasting, and Fox, ABC, and NBC made offers of higher than $2 million a year.
Ooh.
Yeah, in sportscaster salaries. NBC's owner, General Electric, offered to make Madden its worldwide spokesman, and GE Rail would build for him a luxury train.
Ooh, a train.
I like this. This is a fun idea. After he almost joined ABC, Madden and Summerall, along with producer Bob Snyder and director Sandy Grossman, known as the Football Coverage A-Team, helped establish Fox's NFL coverage. Madden and that group gave Fox credibility to broadcast what Rupert Murdoch called the crown jewel of all sports programming in the world. Madden's contract paid him more annually than any NFL player. However, towards the end of his tenure, Fox was reportedly losing an estimated $4.4 billion on its NFL contract for the 8-year deal it signed in 1998, and had been trying to cut programming costs as a result. Madden's Fox contract would have been worth $8 million for 2003. Well, in 2002, Madden became a commentator for ABC's Monday Night Football, working with longtime play-by-play announcer Al Michaels. Madden reportedly made $5 million a year there. And then NBC, in 2006 to 2008, Dick Ebersol, president of NBC Sports, announced that Madden would provide color commentary for Sunday Night Football games beginning in the 2006 season, making him the first sportcaster to have worked on all of the Big Four U.S. broadcast television networks. When you got the last name Madden, you can pretty much sign any contract you want to.
What? No.
On October the 13th, 2008, NBC announced that Madden would not be traveling to the October 19th Sunday Night Football Seattle Seahawks Tampa Bay Buccaneers game in Tampa, Florida, marking the end, get this, of a 476 weekend streak
Wow.
of consecutive broadcast appearances. Madden, who had traveled by bus, decided to take the week off because he had traveled from Jacksonville, Florida to San Diego, and he would have to go back to Florida before returning to his Northern California home. Madden was replaced by Football Night in America studio analyst Chris Collinsworth for the game, and then returned the following telecast on November the 2nd in Indianapolis. Until 2010, the NFL did not schedule Monday night games for 1 week in October so as to not overlap with the World Series taking place around roughly at the same time. The series, Madden had called his final game February 1st, 2009 for Super Bowl 43 between the Cardinals and the Steelers. Madden announced his official retirement from the broadcasting booth in 2009, being succeeded again by Collinsworth. Now, Madden got his start in broadcasting, calling into longtime San Francisco radio personality the Emperor G. Nelson Show on station KYA in the 1970s while coach of the Raiders. He followed Nelson when they moved to station KSFO, and the call-ins continued even after Madden's coaching retirement. Madden later made appearances on KMBR. In 1997, he began calling in the radio station KCBS 5 days a week at 8:15 Pacific Time. This continued through Thanksgiving in 2015, when he ceased calling after heart surgery and other health concerns. He began making twice-weekly appearances on the KCBS radio again in 2017, appearing Mondays and Fridays at 9:15. He stopped making regular radio call-ins in August of 2018, citing a desire to remove any obligations from the schedule. KCBS named him the senior investigative at-large correspondent, indicating that he may occasionally call in again. Madden also aired sports commentaries and syndication on the Westwood One radio network in the United States. Now, Madden's lively and flamboyant delivery won him critical acclaim and 14 Sports Emmy Awards for Standing Sports Event Analyst. His announcing style was punctuated with introductions such as boom, whap, bang, doink, and with his use of the telestrator, a device which allowed him to superimpose his light pen diagrams of football plays over the video footage. Madden's use of the telestrator helped to popularize the technology, which has since become a staple of television coverage in all sports. Madden was also known for working the annual Thanksgiving Day games for CBS and later Fox. He would award a turkey or turducken to the winning team. He would also award a turkey drumstick to players of the winning team following the Thanksgiving Day game, often bringing out a nuclear turkey with as many as 8 drumsticks on it for the occasion. Oh, that's a lot of legs.
A lot of legs.
How'd they catch that sucker?
The moon.
The drumstick served as an odd take on the Player of the Game award. Madden stopped announcing the Thanksgiving Day games after he moved to ABC in 2002, but the tradition continued. Fox, CBS, and the NFL Network, later NBC, presented the Galloping Gobbler Award to the game's most valuable player through 2015. Now, following his death, the NFL now honors Madden every Thursday, every Thanksgiving, beginning in 2022. The entire triple header of games is dubbed the John Madden Thanksgiving Celebration. A recording of Madden was played before each of the Thanksgiving games in 22 and has continued since, along with the awarding of the Madden Player of the Game after each game, with the NBC continuing the tradition of awarding turkey legs to the players of the game. Now, in 1984, Madden took the advice of NFL coach John Robinson, again, friends since elementary school. He created what was called the All-Madden team. Now, this is a group of players that Madden thought represented football and played the game the way he thought it should be played. Madden continued to pick the All-Madden team through the 2001 season, when he left to move to the ABC offices in Monday Night Football. Madden added his Hall of Fame for his favorite players. He created a special 10th anniversary All-Madden team in 1994, an All-Madden Super Bowl team in 1997, and an all-time All-Madden team in 2000. All-Madden was also the title of Madden's third best-selling book after, hey, wait a minute, I wrote a book in 1D, and 1D equals 2 feet. Great titles. In All-Madden, Madden explained what does it mean to be All-Madden. It's a whole range of things. For defensive linemen and linebackers, it's about Jack Youngblood playing with a busted leg, Lawrence Taylor wreaking havoc on the offense, and Reggie White making the other guy wish he put a little more in the collection plate in church. It's about a guy who's got a dirty uniform, mud on his face, grass in his ear hole, and his helmet. Madden also would be in several movies. He was featured in the movie Little Giants. He also played himself as a broadcaster in the fictional games of the film The Replacement. Great movie. On December 25th, 2021, Fox Network presented All Madden, a documentary highlighting Madden's rise to stardom as an NFL coach and broadcaster. Former and NFL players appear in the film, which premiered prior to the Christmas Day contest on Fox between the Browns and Green Bay Packers, just 3 days before his death. Now, following his death, Fox chose to re-air the documentary with special encore presentation 2 days later on December 30th. Various streaming platforms made the documentary available following the encore broadcast due to popular demand. Now, Madden would appear in a variety of radio and television commercials. Ace Hardware, Outback Steakhouse, Verizon Wireless, Rent-A-Center, Miller Lite, Toyota, Sirius Satellite Radio, and Tough Act and Tanact. And in particular, the Miller beer advertisements cemented Madden's image in the public eye as a bubbling but lovable personality. Madden would appear in the 1999 episode of The Simpsons, Sunday, Cruddy Sunday. Madden also hosted an episode of NFL's NBC's Saturday Night Live in 1982 with musical guest Jennifer Holliday. As well, Madden was featured in a YouTube music video of the song Stuck in a Moment You Can't Get Out of. He made a similar appearance in a video for Paul Simon's 1972 single, Me and Julio Down by the Schoolyard, in which he attempts to teach football fundamentals to a group of kids playing a pickup game. I can see that happening. And to minimize travel to studios, Madden built Goal Line Productions in Pleasanton, California. Now, for most of the generation as I was growing up, 1988 basically was the birthplace of John Madden football. This is a series of games that was made by Electronic Arts, later called Madden NFL. Entries in the series have constantly been bestsellers to the extent that they have even spawned TV shows featuring competition between players of the games. Now, despite him retiring in 2009, he continued to lend his name and provide creative input into the series, which were so popular that they became better known as the face of Madden to contemporary football fans than as a Super Bowl winning coach and broadcaster up until his death. Madden viewed the game as an educational tool. During its initial planning conversations with Electronic Arts founder Trip Hawkins in '84, Madden envisioned his program as a tool for teaching and testing plays. He stated in 2012 that Madden NFL was a way for people to learn the game of football and participate in the game at a pretty sophisticated level. EA Sports series continues to use his name, iconography, and license following his death, and announced on Madden Day, June 1st, 2022, that all editions of Madden 23 would feature Madden on the cover in tribute to his legacy, and with the next-gen version cover being a picture of Madden celebrating the victory of the head coach of the Oakland Raiders in Super Bowl XI, and the All-Madden edition cover being based on the cover of the series of its first installment, John Madden Football. Now, again, won the Super Bowl, head coach of the Raiders. He, in broadcasting, was a 16-time Emmy Award winner.
Wow.
He was the 1984 NSMA National Sportscaster of the Year. He was the number 2, I don't know who number one was, Yahoo Sports Top 50 all-time network television sports announcers. He also won in 2002 the Pete Rozelle Radio Television Award. Inducted into the Bay Area Sports Hall of Fame, Class 1991, Pro Football Hall of Fame in 2006, the California Hall of Fame in 2009, and in 2010, a Hall of Fame inductee of the NSMA. On the personal side of things, Madden met his wife, Virginia Fields, in a bar in Pismo Beach, California. They would get married on December the 26th, 1959, in Santa Maria, California. Afterwards, they lived in Pleasanton, California, had 2 sons, Joseph and Michael. Joe played football for the Brown Bears, and Mike attended Harvard University, where he started as receiver on the football team. A grandson, Jesse, played football with the Michigan Wolverines in the early 2020s and was hired as a quality control coach for the Washington Commanders in 2025. Now, again, here's one thing we get to touch back on. Madden's aversion to flying was well known, although his fear was not realized until many years into his adult life. He'd lost people close to him in October 29, 1960. California Polytechnic State University football team's plane crash claimed the lives of 16 players, the team's student manager, and a football booster. However, it wasn't until 1979 that he had his first panic attack on a flight originating in Tampa, Florida. He never flew on a plane again. Madden, however, stated once in an interview that his fears were not about turbulence, flying, or heights, but primarily claustrophobia. During a Saturday Night Live hosting appearance in the early 80s, a short film aired depicting Madden making a journey from New York City to host Saturday Night Live by train. In the mid-1980s, Madden was a frequent rider of Amtrak's Lakeshore Limited. Amtrak let the famous customer use the dining car at any time. However, beginning in 1987, Greyhound Lines supplied Madden with a custom bus and drivers in exchange for advertising and speaking events dubbed the Madden Cruiser. I got an RV like that. The Madden Cruiser shells were manufactured by Motor Coach Industries. The coach bus sponsors over the years again included Walker Advantage Muffler and the Outback Steakhouse. In 2018, Madden donated the original Madden Cruiser to the Pro Football Hall of Fame, where it was restored to its original condition. Now, Madden never did commentary for the Pro Bowl, which is held in Honolulu during every year of its broadcasting career. Yeah.
There's only one way to get there.
Oh, yeah, what are they going to load them into a submarine? No.
That would be fun.
Likewise, Madden never called any preseason game held outside of North America, even when this play-by-play partner was on the telecast. Madden found an unexpected use for the bus in New York City after the September 11, 2001 attacks, when he provided transportation for former ice skating champion Peggy Fleming, whose flight home to Los Gatos, California, had been grounded. Now, in 2016, Madden's bocce tournament, co-hosted with Steve Mariachi, raised $5 million for Special Olympics Northern California, the Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation, and the Diabetes Youth Foundation. In 2021, Madden began funding 6 scholarships for his alma mater, Cal Poly, for students from various East Bay high schools. In October of 2022, Cal Poly and the Madden family announced that Madden had donated a leading contribution towards a total $30 million football facility at the Cal Poly campus. The facility would be named the John Madden Football Center, would furnish all new lockers, strength and conditioning facilities, a nutrition center, offices, training rooms, a film review theater for his team's coaches, players, and trainers. The facility would encompass 30,000 square feet as anticipated to open in 2029, with the entrance adjacent to the university's memorial for that 1960 airline crash victims, many of whom were Madden's friends. And sadly, Madden would die at his home in Pleasanton, California, December 28, 2021, at the age of 85. The cause of death was undisclosed. But Madden, I have to say, was probably one of my favorite coaches. But the thing that's also interesting is that when he left the Raiders, he also left them in a great spot, because less than 2 years later, one of their assistant coaches, Tom Flores, would go on to help the Raiders go to 2 more Super Bowls. And Flores would also go on to the Hall of Fame. But this has been the Bearded Historian, folks. It's been a fun week. We'll see you next week.
No, you won't.
No, I won't. Okay, I'm leaving. Bye.
Bye-bye.